Welcome to the Dan Sports Tips NFL Daily Fantasy Preview Show for Thanksgiving Day on DraftKings. I'm going to be taking a look at the three games on the NFL slate today for those of you that are playing on the Thanksgiving Day contests. For anyone that hasn't had the opportunity to sign up and play daily fantasy sports with DraftKings yet, I will put a link in the description for this video that will enable you to do that today and spice up Turkey Day for you. I'm going to go through it game by game and just highlight the players in each game that I believe to be usable. Obviously, I'll go in order as well, so I will start with Minnesota and Detroit. I think looking at it on the Detroit side of things, I'd prefer to avoid anyone really in the Detroit passing game against that Minnesota defense. The only player that I'd really be looking to use from Detroit, I think, is the running back Theo Riddick. If you look at what Jordan Howard did a few weeks ago against this Minnesota Vikings defense, he's proven that yes, you can run on them. Certainly that they can struggle with passes to running backs out of the backfield, which is where Riddick makes his hay, if you like. He's on a fairly reasonable salary to get into your lineups today at 5,400, and I think he's got incredible upside in the matchup. Looking at Minnesota, I couldn't dream of putting Sam Bradford in there. I wouldn't be using their defense against Detroit. Stafford gets the ball out of his hand quickly. I don't think there's a lot of sacks there to be had. With Stephon Diggs looking like he's going to be out of this game, I think Adam Thielen at 4,000 is certainly an interesting option at wide receiver. He's been quietly having a very good sort of season the last few games. He's put up 17.5 against Arizona last week with 65 yards and a touchdown. Scored a touchdown in 2 consecutive games. And the other player I'd use on Minnesota is the tight end Kyle Rudolph. I mean, he's far from the most consistent at the position, but one thing we know about the Detroit Lions is they do struggle to defend the tight end position as well. Rudolph is a red zone threat. He's got touchdowns in 2 of the last 3 games, including when they played Detroit in Week 9. I certainly think if you can't afford to pay up at the big for the big position like Jordan Reed, shall we say, then I think Rudolph's got upside for your lineups. Washington-Dallas is one of the games with the most usable players in. Certainly I'll put my first quarterback up here. I'd be happy to use Kirk Cousins for 5,900 against the Dallas secondary. The Dallas defense against the pass isn't great. They've obviously they're down the likes of Church and Claiborne. I believe Church is still out for this game. And they've been passing the ball exceptionally well the last few weeks, moving the ball through the air quickly at will, as evidenced in the game against Green Bay last weekend. I think Cousins offers incredible upside. Looking at wide receivers to play with him, I'd lean away from Deshaun Jackson. Certainly Jamison Crowder at 5,800 has come into his own to stack with Cousins, and obviously the tight end Jordan Reed is probably the premier pass catching option for today for 6,200. Looking at the running backs, obviously Ezekiel Elliott for 8,500. This is a prime matchup for him. The Washington run defense is not good as being kind. They're very, very bad against the run, Washington. I think Zeke is probably going to light up Thanksgiving Day and have a great game. Rob Kelly at 4,300 is slightly of interest as well. I mean, if what he's done for the last 2 games is legit and this is the real Rob Kelly, then finally Washington may have found their running back. The last certainly against Green Bay, 137 yards on 24 touches with 3 touchdowns. I mean, we're not going to get that, I would think, for 34 points, but you know, he had 97 yards against Minnesota the week before, 87 yards and a touchdown the week before that against Cincinnati. It's fairly consistent production, and it's a fairly low-end price as well. I certainly think there's room for at the flex position to be sticking the likes of either Kelly or Riddick at Detroit into your lineups. Defensively, in this matchup, I'd maybe take a look at using Dallas, but I think probably the defense I like the most today is in the late game, which is the Pittsburgh Steelers. Obviously, they racked up, was it 22 points? Let me just check that. Yeah, 22 points last week against the Cleveland Browns. Cleveland Browns have ranked 31st for allowing pressure on their quarterback and sacks this year. The team that ranks 32 is today's opponent for Pittsburgh, the Indianapolis Colts. We know that offensive line is a mess, and with Scott Tolzien at quarterback as well, I believe in his NFL career he has 1 touchdown pass and 5 interceptions. So for 2,800, the Pittsburgh defense is probably going to be the highest owned now that Luck is out of this game. But it's certainly probably the premier one you'd want to be getting involved in. Ben Roethlisberger was 7,300. Although he's not been as good on the road, he'd be my second choice, and he is more expensive as well than Kirk Cousins. But you have to think they're going to put points on the board against Indy's defense with Tolzien at quarterback. This looks like a blowout for Pittsburgh, even though they haven't been as good on the road this year. Le'Veon Bell at running back. If you can get Bell and Elliott into your lineups, Bell for 9,000. The Indianapolis rush defense is pretty much about as bad as they come as well. It's only slightly better than that Washington Redskins lineup. Bell, the last 2 games, has combined to score 71 points over those games. 2 touchdowns against Dallas. He's involved in the receiving game. He's obviously a really good runner as well. I think Bell's a top draw option for you at 9,000. Looking at wide receiver, yes, you could get Antonio Brown in there. But I prefer to look down the order, if you like, when it comes to Steelers here. And the one that's caught my eye in recent weeks has been Kobe Hamilton, who's in at the minimum $3,000. He's been certainly been catching the eye of Ben Roethlisberger as well in recent weeks. He had a big catch for 39 against Dallas. I think he could well be involved in this game. He got 5 targets in the game against Cleveland, 6 targets 4 games ago against New England as well. I think if you're looking to try and get both those big running backs in there, then I think Hamilton could be the way. If you've got a little bit of cash left over, if you haven't gone for a more expensive option at tight end like a Witten or a Kyle Rudolph, Eli Rogers has been getting plenty of work in the passing game as well. He's had let's have a look. 6, 5, 10 targets. So 21 targets, averaging 7 over the last 3 games. Not really much of a touchdown threat though. I have a feeling, if you like, call it a gut play about Hamilton this week. The only Indianapolis Colt that I can possibly make a case for involving in your lineups would be Frank Gore at running back. Frank Gore continues to defy old father time. He's a fairly reasonable 5,200 this week. He gets involved in the receiving game as well, so he could well end up catching plenty of ball and getting the points for receptions out of the backfield as well. And that is a good way to attack these Pittsburgh Steelers. That's pretty much all I have for you on the Thanksgiving games. I will be back with a more in-depth preview, if you like. I just want to get something out for Thanksgiving with 3 games on the Thursday and dedicated slates. I will be back on either Friday or Saturday with a weekend preview for the rest of the weekend's games. Please enjoy your Thanksgiving. Don't eat too much, Please like the video, subscribe to my channel. Best of luck with your games on DraftKings today. Let me know in the comments what you think of the games, who you think's going to win, and I will see you later on in the week.